Hi, Dan. Hi, Grace.
ערב טוב.
ערב טוב, דן.
ערב טוב.
מה שלומך, כבוד הרב?
ברוך השם.
Hi, Dan.
היי. מה שלומך?
Good, thanks.
אוקיי.
Hi, Eyal.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
היי.
You know, too.
Hi, Yossi.
Ellie? Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi to the rabbi.
Dan.
Hi,
Hi, how you doing?
I'm reading this. Actually,
Yeah.
looking at the pictures.
He's reading the
What's the sixth
parasha of the week for the kids, yeah.
What is it?
What's the sixth parasha?
What's the week parasha? Huh? Vaigash.
Like that?
Yes, Rabbi.
Ah. So I tell you all about it. Because there's no school, that's it.
Rega, listen. Say again.
When you're sick,
Bigash?
There you go.
when you're sick, put something in Benjamin's backpack.
Yeah.
But if it's not that, please don't tell me I missed a Saturday.
No, but he didn't miss anything.
No, it's very good. It's the last week's parasha. So, we're going to talk about that, Daniel. Don't worry.
Yeah, עוד לא הגענו לזה עכשיו. דרך אגב, כבוד הרב, ששאלת אותי, שאמרתי לך על כי נבהלו מפניו.
Okay, in English.
When...
Ooh, I found the one with the three angels.
Hey, please quiet. When they got scared, when they saw Yosef, when he revealed himself to them,
Okay.
so they actually, they all got a heart died. The whole, say like heart attack, and then they came back to life. The Arav Meir Eliyahu is mentioning it.
And if you're talking,
נכון. רש"י לא מביא את זה?
Dan, what are you eating, Dan?
שנייה.
An apple. Doesn't sound so exciting.
I was trying to hear what Yosef was saying about the brothers.
So, Yossi and Rabbi.
Yeah.
So there are a few types of midrashim, and I was reading a bit about it because I have difficulties with this concept. Some of them are agadah, like agadot. Some of them are coming from different sources, right? But are all the midrashim in the Talmud, or some of them are in external books?
It's a very good question. The answer is that there is separate midrashim. Nothing to do with the Talmud. Many midrashim were actually written by Tanaim, Midrash Rabbah, Midrash Tanchuma. Those are the famous ones, right? Yalkut Shimoni. There's some very famous midrashim written by the great Tanaim, but again, the Talmud often has parts of a midrash. We've spoken about this in the past. Exactly what is the point of midrash, and what place does it hold in our world, right? In Yahadut, in Yiddish.
Yeah. But my question is, when is the midrash getting legitimation? When is the midrash is accepted, and when is it not? Like, who decides? Who decided which one are just, let's say, stories, fantasies, and some of them are real?
So it's a very, very good question. I think you actually need an entire class to even begin to delve into the concept of midrashim. we mentioned in the past the Rambam has got a very famous line in his opening of Perek Chelek. Perek Chelek is the Gemara in Sanhedrin, one of the last prakim, last chapters, where he talks about where there's a lot of very esoteric terms which are referenced there. And Rambam says that if you believe everything that is said, take it at there are three types of people. He said the people that believe everything that they see at face value, which is they're foolish. Then there are people that don't believe anything, so they're also foolish. So what's the answer? You're supposed to know how to take everything with a pinch of salt. Bottom line is, the Ramchal also has a Moshe Chaim Luzzatto also has a long, famous introduction about this. And to put it in a nutshell, before we start the class, is really that Midrashim in general is a stuff which is given over from generation to generation in secret code. The reason why it was given over in esoteric terms was because we don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry to go and translate and to explain the Torah according to their own misgivings. And therefore, Torah was given over in this kind of very difficult, strange parables and very strange scenarios. And the way you need to have the keys to open up the treasure chest. And those keys were handed over from teacher to student, so on and so forth. So very often a midrash is really just a cover of what the underlying principle is. So not every midrash is supposed to take literally, and not every midrash you're not supposed to take literally. You have to know how to, where the salt and pepper goes, kind of thing. And once you have that, you have to be very, very well versed in midrashim and what's supposed to be taken out of context, what's supposed to be taken for real. And when you have that broader picture, then you can know how to analyze different stuff. But it's a much broader discussion. Definitely worth a class on its own right.
But Arav,
Okay.
just I'll add, for example, when we talked about Me'arat HaMachpelah, you said that there is midrashim that says it's Me'ara on
That's
top
right,
of Me'ara, Me'ara inside of Me'ara. So it could be also that the midrashim complement each other from a different direct point of view. So not necessarily it contradict themselves or something like that.
So yes and no. So I think you're right. Sometimes it's true that midrash has one point of view, and the other midrash has a different one. But there is such a concept of midrashim chalukim, where you have the same facts, and this one said this happened, this one said that happened. What happened?
Noach.
So that's
Sdom.
what we cover.
Sdom. If it's the daughter of Noach or
Right.
a different daughter.
Right. There's hundreds, there's thousands of explanations. Okay, we're going to start today's class because we've got so much to cover, and this is the last Rashi class in this series for this year, Bezrat Hashem. Please God, after the winter break, we'll be starting a new series. Still clarifying exactly what that series looks like, so I don't want to give it away yet. But stay tuned for details on our very new website, Please God, which will be launching tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem.
So,
Okay.
Rabbi, next week there's no class, right?
So next week there's no class.
Okay.
Okay, we'll come back, have a bit of a break, and we'll come back with additional freshness. Okay, so we are really in the thick of things which we've been discussing the past 3 weeks. Yosef, the brothers, the relationship between Yosef, the relationship between the brothers, the relationship with Yaakov Avinu, before, after, during, so much passion, so much happening throughout these parashiyot, which have to be analyzed. And we elaborated a little bit last week about the importance of analyzing the contradictions in the wording and the contradictions within the behaviors of the different people. Because if we analyze it appropriately, we realize these people are malachim, literally like angels. But if they're angels, what relevance has it got to us? And the answer is that Chachamim point out for us exactly where the flaws are. There were flaws to a very microscopic level, and Chachamim put the microscope on top to say, guys, this is what we have to learn. For example, Yaakov, don't, go ahead and give more favoritism to one son over the other. All that sort of stuff. This is Chachamim come and tell us to the nth degree, then this is what we're supposed to learn, and not to look at it as just basic sibling rivalry and, it's just a little joke, and, it's just basically one of us, we're just fighting with one of our friends. That's not at all what's happening, because then you look at the behavior within the parshiot and you see the whole balancing of emotions in different ways to such an incredible degree, which clearly shows that we're not talking about simplistic stories over here. That's really the overall discussion which we've been discussing the past couple of weeks. And I think that if we can get nothing other than that lesson from these classes, I think Dayenu, that would be in its own right an incredible lesson for us. Today, I want to discuss a couple of different points. I don't know how much we're going to be able to cover, but I would like your input on a couple of different ideas. We are going to begin with a discussion based on the end of the last week's parasha, like we usually do, because Sefer Bereshit, we said, is a whole, log one after another, and definitely with the Parshiot of Yosef, this is one bracket, from Vayeshev, Miketz, Vayigash, Vayechi, is all one big parasha. We have to analyze exactly all discrepancies between the wording, between the conversations of the brothers, the father, the two Yosef, backwards and forwards. We'll see another one today. And we have to try and analyze what's going on to be able to really understand the underlying behavior. So we're going to begin with the end of last week's parasha, Parashat Miketz. This week's parasha, Parashat Vayigash. The last week's parasha, we're going to start chapter Memdala, chapter 44. And we are going to begin from Maftir, Pasuk Yudalet, Pasuk 14. So what's been happening? Here's a quick recap of last week's parasha. The end of the story goes, they had a great party, lavish seudah, with, being invited to the king's quarters. They eat together, they leave. Yosef tells Menashe, tells his son, who is his general manager, to go and make sure to put the money back into the sacks of the brothers, and the sack of the youngest child, who is Binyamin, make sure you put my special goblet. Okay, they leave the city, they go. Suddenly, Menashe comes galloping after them, and he immediately says to them, he really tries to strike while the iron's hot, and he says, let's go back a little bit, sorry. Pasuk Dalet, 44:4. הם יצאו את העיר לא הרחיקו ויוסף אמר לאשר ביתו קום רדוף אחרי אנשים בשקתם אמרת עליהם למה שילמתם רעה תחת טובה. So the first thing he tells them, he says, where is the gratitude? The ingratitude of this thing is just mind-boggling. He tells them, how could you go and steal my master's silver cup? Say we don't know what you're talking about. And if you look at Pasuk, we start saying what you're talking about. We gave you back the money. We were so honest about it. And he said, look, none of us stole the cup. If you look at Pasuk 9, Asher yimatzeh ito ma'avadecha v'met v'gam anachnu nihyeh la'adoni la'avadim. Whatever was, whether if you find the goblet, I can tell you now, we'll give the punishment. We agree that the person that he finds it in is going to die. He can be killed. And all of us will also be slaves, even though we did nothing. Maybe accomplices to the crime, whatever. But we can tell you with 100% it's not happening. Okay, no problem. Interestingly enough, the first thing that he says is, you should just know, next Pasuk, Pasuk 10, chapter 44, Pasuk 10, he says, no, yeah, like you said, The person who is found will be a slave, and all the rest of you will be let go. So he's already changed what's happening over here. They said one thing, he said something else. They said the person who finds the goblet will be killed, and all the brothers will become slaves. Menashe turns back to them, and he says, no. All of you go scot-free. I can't hear you, Shlomo.
Not Menashe. Menashe say that?
Menashe says this. Yosef said that as well, but we'll see that in a minute. This is now still Pasuk 10, right? Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, Menashe. Yes, Pasuk 10, Pasuk Yud. They haven't gone back to the city yet. And he says to them, you will all go scot-free, and the person I found the Gavia, the person I found the goblet, is going to become a servant. Okay? You start checking, make like a whole show out of it. They check in the oldest, because they don't want to say, hey, you see, you found it straight away. And eventually, guess what? Lo and behold, they find it in Tachat Binyamin, in Binyamin's package. They immediately tear their garments, and they go back with Menashe to Mitzrayim, to Egypt. They all come. Yosef, Pasuk now 15. Vayomer lahem Yosef, ma ma'aseh hazeh asher asitem? Halo yidatem ki nachesh yinachesh isha kamoni? What have you done? Do you not realize that a man like me can foretell events? I mean, I'm a magician, I'm a sorcerer. You saw how I put you all together in the appropriate seating position around the table according to your ages, and it would be obvious that I would know exactly who stole it. He didn't tell them, interestingly enough, what Menashe told them. Menashe told them straight away. He said, hey, where's your gratitude? It was below Yosef's dignity to talk about, he didn't say thank you. He's a ruler, the viceroy of the entire Egypt, of the entire world. Yehuda jumps in. Vayomer Yehuda. Yehuda becomes the spokesman of the brothers. And we'll see in this week's parasha why Yehuda was the spokesman of the brothers. And he says, Ma nomar la'adoni ma nedaber u'ma niftadak. Ha'elohim matza et avon avadecha. We've got nothing to say, nothing to justify ourselves. God has found the sin of your servants. Hinenu avadim la'adoni, gam anachu gam asher nimtza gaveh be'ado. Again, Yehuda goes forward, he says, we will all be slaves. But this time he doesn't say that the person that was found it should be killed, because he's claiming that this whole thing is all made up. But you know what? We'll all be slaves. Not one, you now get 10 strong men. Or 11 strong men. Binyamin is here now. Okay, Vayomer Chalil Masotzot. Now, Yosef, being the benevolent ruler, which he is, he says, Chalil Ali, I would never do such a thing. Ha'isha shenimtza hagavia biado, hu yeh li aved, v'atem malu l'shalom avichem. The person whose possession the goblet was found, he shall be my slave, and the rest of you go in peace. Person committed the crime, he gets punished. The rest, I've got nothing to do with you guys. Now, at this point, let's just try and analyze exactly what's going on in terms of the relationship. Yosef is seemingly in the right over here. Yehuda, the spokesman of the brothers, has offered they should all be slaves. Yosef, being such a great guy, says, no, don't worry about it. You can all go, I'll just keep Binyamin, because he's the one who stole it. We turn over the page into the 6th parasha. Vayigash elav Yehuda. Now, what happens over here? Let's just go through the psukim one after another, and let's see if we can cover a little bit. Vayigash elav Yehuda. Yehuda approaches Yosef. Now, Vayomer, he says, let's just read the psukim, and then we'll discuss about change of tone, change of perhaps whole level of introduction now, right? He said, please, my Lord, may your servant speak a word in my Lord's ears. And don't get angry with your servant, for you are like Paro. Now, first of all, let's just try and take this pasuk apart a little bit. What's going on over here? Any problems in this pasuk?
There's something interesting about Hichamocha Keparo, because we remember a few prakim back, Vayakam melech chadash asher lo yadat Yosef. There's something interesting.
That's in Shemot.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That's in Shemot Bichlal.
2 weeks.
It's interesting about that very person, asher lo yadat Yosef. Here he is likened to Paro.
Very good point.
But a comment about.
I should say Rashi does point out over there in Parashat Shemot, Asher lo yadat Yosef, exactly what that means.
Interesting. And also, there's something about collective responsibility and collective punishment that seems to be on the table here as well. Should it be only one person assuming the responsibility for this deed, or should it be the collective? And should everybody, all the brothers, take responsibility ultimately for Joseph's fate, however good it ultimately became, or should it be one brother? It clearly appears to be all of them who should be carrying the burden of that responsibility.
Very, very important point. We're going to get back to it in a minute. I think that's a fascinating, insightful idea.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
if you're saying what's wrong here, he is always taking the role of slave. That's repeating like 3 times.
No, there's a way.
I know it's a way of speech. It's a way of speech.
We're talking about the king over here. I mean, we're not used to talking to kings, but I mean, today in the
there's
news,
another thing here. He's telling him that it's not exactly a compliment.
Oh, so that's right. Okay, so that's a good point. I was going to say today in the news they had the Kushner went to see the king of Morocco. I remember once when I was a kid. I think I mentioned this once. So I remember there was a South African rabbi that came to stay in our house. He was an emissary of a delegation of the Moroccan Jews. He was living in South Africa at the time. But they brought him in to present to the king of Morocco, the father of the current king, present on behalf of the Jews of Morocco. The last king of Morocco, you went into him, he didn't like the look of your nose, off with your head, right? There's no such thing. You go, hishtachavaya, it's proper bowing down, on all fours, right? There's no monkeying around. Nowadays, it's a little less. This current king doesn't like the whole concept of, kingship like there is, like his father was. He's a bit more modern. But you see the concept of melucha, which we're not used to. But, it's very scary to deal with a king. Avdecha is basic wording you'll find throughout the last 6 parasha. It's the whole time we see psukim where talking about Eved. But it's an interesting point. I hear what you're saying.
But by the way, Rashi, Rashi, Mary, I heard that every time that they say Avdecha about Yaakov and Yosef lo macha, he lost a year of his life. So correct. 10 years less.
Yosef, correct. Yosef was the first person to pass away from all the brothers. The last psukim, Parashat Vayechi, next parasha, Yaakov dies. Shortly after, Yosef actually dies. Right?
I want to talk about Yehuda, because Yehuda is actually the leader of the brothers, and not Reuven, the oldest. And if you go to the previous Perek Lamed Zayin, he's the one that suggested, let's not kill Yosef. Let's just sell it to the Ishmaelim.
Lamed Zayin, Pasuk what?
Pasuk Chavav. Or Chav Zayin.
So Perek 37, Pasuk
Chav Zayin.
Pasuk 27, okay.
ויאמר יהודה לאחיו, מה בצע כי נהרוג את אחינו וכיסינו את דמו. So what is interesting is, Yehuda is the spokesperson, right? And also at the end of the day, there were two kingdoms, Yehuda and Israel. I think Yehuda, it would be interesting, Rabbi, Yehuda is already, there's something about his tribe, his destination, because it really became one of the, biggest, actually the only tribe. The name of the kingdom was Yehuda, So Yehuda is here also, as much as he's submissive, he's the leader,
So I think that's a very important point which you're pointing out. I would like to bring your attention to a Rashi on that parasha, in Parashat Vayeshev. Rashi, have a look Perek Lamed Chet, Pasuk Aleph. Perek 38, Pasuk 1. Vayhi ba'et hahi, it was at that time, Vayered Yehuda me'et Echav. And Yehuda went down from his brothers. Rashi says something very fascinating and a bit of a spin-off of what we spoke about last week. Just to your point, Eyal. See, that's the whole story with Yehuda and Tamar. Yeah, that's where the introduction to that story. Look at Rashi. Vayhi ba'et hahi. Pasuk, again, chapter 38, Pasuk 1. Lama nispecha parshu delakan. Why is this passage juxtaposed to this point? Bifsik parshu Yosef, interrupting the narrative of the whole episode of Yosef. We're in the middle of the story over here.
Strange.
Lelamed, says Rashi, to teach us, shehoridu echav migadluto, migedulato. Yehuda was taken down from his greatness. That means, what means greatness? From his position of leadership. Why? When they saw the distress of their father, Amru, the brothers said, Ata, they start pointing fingers. Ata amarta lemochro. You the one who said to sell him. Ilu amarta lashivo. If you would have said, return him to Yaakov, hayinu shomim lecha. We would have listened to you. Now, that's very interesting. That's a very interesting, there's some interesting dynamics going on over here. Because first of all, the fact that they're pointing fingers. One second, didn't we have a collective responsibility over here? Back to Ellen's point. Number two, it sounds like Yehuda was the one that had taken the lead over here. But Yehuda simply has taken lead in the sale, not in the whole, throwing in the pit and all that sort of stuff. And thirdly, the level of competence or the level of leadership that Yehuda had was the bloodlust, if you want. We said last week that they were so confident with their decision that they were able to sit down and eat bread after they chucked him into the pit, as if nothing happened. Let's go have some supper, break bread for the last supper, or the first supper. Then essentially what's happening here is, then Yosef or Yehuda is taking up this position as leader, that if he would have said no. What does that tell you about each brother's respect for one another? That's a fascinating point, Eyal, which he brought out. Very, very interesting Rashi, and hence he was like kind of taken down a couple of notches. Yehuda, you're no longer the leader. Yehuda is now essentially coming back to this week's parasha. Vayigash elav Yehuda, he's now trying to come back now. So in fact, last week's parasha, when they have no way out, they've got a famine, and they have to go back down to Egypt, and this Egyptian ruler is adamant, you bring down Binyamin, and Yaakov says, no way. And Reuven says, you know what, I'll take achrayut, I'll take responsibility. Yaakov says, monkey business. Yehuda says, you know what, it's on me. I'll deal with it, and I guarantee
That's it.
that this is what's happening. Vayigash elav Yehuda, we open up the statement, and Yehuda says, okay, let's take the gloves off. Okay? Now let's talk. Now let me ask you, I want to ask you something else. When we talk about the tone of voice, from the simple word of the first pasuk in the sixth parasha, can anyone tell me if there's a change of mode over here? Do you discern some sort of level of, change of approach, or do you see Yehuda seemingly being kind of the underdog?
Sorry.
This is a complete change.
Where do you see that? I know we all know the story, but I want to see it in the pasuk.
I think the very word Vayigash. No, it's not.
I don't know about that.
He talked to him.
The rabbi
said harshly.
But the rabbi said, it's because of the promise he made to his father. It's on me. If I don't bring Benjamin back, it's on me. The Pharaoh said he will not see us if we don't bring Benjamin back.
But where do you see that in the pasuk? I agree with you.
All the time, Yosef is running the show. Yosef is telling them what to do. Yosef is telling them, come here, do this, go there, come back. He's controlling the show. But at this point, Yehuda is taking over.
Okay, so both your points. Yes, Yossi and Eyal and Shlomo have got some interesting points. Let's point out. Look at Rashi. Vayigash elav Yehuda vayomer bi Adoni. He says something a little bit strange. Daber na davar yidaberna avdecha davar be'oznei Adoni. Can I have a word in your ear?
As a slave.
Have you ever thought? I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen The Queen. I'm British. I mean, thank God, I've got a fellow Brit over here, Grace. Otherwise, I'd feel alone over here.
I thought you were Moroccan. Oh my goodness. Okay, I won't hold that against you. One strike.
That as well. Don't worry. But if someone ever goes to the Queen, say, "Can I have a word in your ear?" And just a quick whisper. Yeah. You sent out flying. I know. My last boss in Gibraltar, he was an OBE. He said, the handbook that he got before he had to go in to see the Queen, you can't put out your hand before she puts out her hand. You can't put your back to her. You can't talk before she talks. All sorts of stuff. When the chief rabbi was here, he was telling me you stayed there for a night. Don't ask. You get a whole handbook of how to deal with the Queen. You don't just say, "Can I have a little word in the mouth, in the ear?" Let's carry on. Says Rashi. So seemingly is already out of place. So Rashi already points out, what does that mean? What does it mean? It means, may my words enter your ears. Basically, what I'm telling you now is something which is really coming from the bottom of my heart. Please, I really want it kind of, resonate with you. And then he talks about this passionate plea about his father, and he's so sad, and he's elderly and frail, and he's going to die. Please have passion. Okay. Next Rashi. So here's the catch. Here's Eyal and Yossi pointing this out. Va'al yichar apecha. My daughter always tells me, whenever one of her friends tell her, "Don't take this personally," to take it personally, right? Mm-hmm. Everything's there. I love you very much, but she said, "No offense." No offense means yes.
No offense,
right? So, al yichar apecha be'avdecha. Don't get angry means you're gonna get angry with what I'm about to say, but just don't. Va'al yichar apecha, says Rashi, mikana talamed. From here you learn, shetiber elav keshot. Yehuda does not speak to him very harshly. He's now going to take the gloves off, literally. Yes, Eyal.
So two things. First of all, there's a verb that is very dominant in this few chapters, which is vayered, which is that has a lot of meanings, because I think that the dream, Yosef dream about his family, his brothers bowing down, Yodim, but it's constantly mentioned, in a very indirect way. And secondly, Yehuda is taking a big chance, because you don't approach the king, Yosef, like that, because and what do you mean he's going to be harsh with him? Who is he as a slave to be harsh on Yosef?
Yep, so it's all very good points. I think, it's fascinating. You look a little bit through the Midrashim, which you mentioned before. These are Midrashim which are out of this world. The anger which Yehuda had, the passion, he bellowed, and he was prepared to go to war with the entire Egypt. He's Sachakal, who is he? Like you said, he's one man. If you take the collective strength, who are they? Well, the answer is we're talking about mighty warriors, the Shvatim. I mean, just look at their father. The father was able to, Rashi says, plop off the huge boulder on the well when Rachel's waiting and all the shepherds over there with his middle finger. Was something which needed countless shepherds to be able to remove. We're talking about mighty warriors. Shimon and Levi are prepared to wipe out an entire city single-handedly at a young age. So we're talking about mighty warriors over here. Okay. Midrash describes how actually Yosef, to a degree, got scared. He had to make sure, keep things in check, and he calls Menashe to give a little kick to the palace wall, and the whole thing crumbles. And they realize, 1 second, there's going to be a real competition of strength over here. But let's not go into Midrashim, because you like to keep. With Rashi now, we're going Pshuto Shel Mikra.
Can I add a few things?
Sure.
Okay, so the Vaigash starts, as everyone said, that it's starting to change tone and is become aggressive. And he said, like, Hichamocha kefao. So one of the explanation is that you are a liar like Paro. And why does he say it to him? Because he said, like, you came to us, you said that we stole, and the guy that came to check for our bags, he went to the older, to the younger, until he found it. If you really can tell and can see the future, you should have told him, go look for the small kid. He shouldn't have looked everywhere. So you're lying. Like that was the
Okay, so
approach.
that's
Now,
a very interesting point.
just I'll add one more thing.
Sure.
That the reason that even though before Vaigash they still said that we're all going to be slave is because they thought that this would be part of their punish from Hashem to sell Yosef. The problem was that because he said, no, you can go and Binyamin stay, then Yehuda understand that it's all a lie because Binyamin didn't sell Yosef, so he's not part of the punish. And when they're not getting punished, he understands that it's not from Hashem, and then he's going to the war.
So beautiful. So who says that? That is the opinion
Me.
of the Nativ. Nativ says that. Nativ was 150 years before you. Okay, but otherwise good. But it's a beautiful Perush, and that actually works very beautifully. So let's get back to that in a minute. If I don't get back to it, please point it out to me.
But that's what I meant earlier, that what he's telling the Kamocha Keparo is not a compliment.
Right, 100%.
He's confronting, yeah.
So Rashi actually points out, Rashi has three explanations. You know, I'm not going to go into all three of them. I'll just tell you it offhand, won't read it inside. One is you are, in a simple understanding, talking out of respect. You are esteemed in my eyes like Paro. So basically, you know, you have the same weight in terms of who decides what's happening over here. So please listen to my passionate plea. Second explanation is you should know the last person that started with my granddad, Abraham, got some real trouble with Paro. The last Paro got Sarat when he started with Sarah. So just watch it. You know, our family, we have special protection. So don't play games with us. Ki kamocha ke Paro. Which Paro? Not this Paro. The Paro which happened a couple of years ago. The third Perush, Rashi says, Ki kamocha ke Paro. Don't start with me, because if you start with me, I'm going to kill you both, you and Paro. Ki kamocha ba'astar. Start with you and finish with him, or start with him, finish with you. So just, you know, when we're talking about the roges, the anger, the pain going on over here, Yosef's kind of really standing at a real war of wits over here right now. Okay, so we've opened up the introduction. We know the tone has changed from, oh, we've been caught red-handed, I mean, without any proof, but we're now going back to be taken as prisoners, to Yehuda's putting his foot down. Enough monkey business, let's talk. And I want you to listen really carefully. And don't you dare start with me, because if you do, off with your head kind of thing. This is the wrong way around. Yeah, this is like Eliel said before. Who is Yehuda? He's a very strong, mighty warrior. You want to play games? Let's play games. So he said, okay, you know what? Let's just talk about, quick recap what happened. And what I want to do in the next couple of minutes is to really try and analyze a few of the stories, a few of the discrepancies within the story, how he kind of recaps this short summary. And then we'll see if we have any time for anything else, which I don't believe we will, because there's too much to cover. Okay, let's quickly read through the story. Adoni Sha'alet Avadav. I just point out one beautiful Bet Halevi. Bet Halevi says something, such a beautiful Perush. He says, Ki kamocha keparo. For the Israelis amongst us, there's a much discussion. It shouldn't be Ki kamocha keparo. It should either be that he's equating Paro to him, or he's equating him to Paro. So either the word should be
Ata.
Ki kamocha Paro, like you is Paro, or it should have been Ki ata ke Paro. But the double Ki kamocha ke Paro just doesn't make sense from a grammatical perspective. Anyway, the better he says something, I really love this Perush. I just saw this a couple of minutes before we started. He says, Yehuda was worried. He said, if you look at the history of what's going on, it's very strange. Yosef starts off with some really weird type of allegations. He says to them, the first thing they come through the door, he says, oh, you know what? You're spies. Spies? I mean, where did that come from? So, and they never kind of really respond to that. They first say, no, we're part of one family. It's not really clear what's going on. He puts them in prison and takes them out, sends them back, calls the younger son. Yehuda's suspecting over here, perhaps there's some weird situation over here where it's just straight miscommunication. As we all know, miscommunication, or should we say communication, is key. Whether it's shalom bayit, whether it's friends, whether it's at work, whatever it is. So many times when communication goes off, that's when the big the stuff goes out of proportion. So Yosef is worried that until now there was always the interpreter between them. Says Yosef, one second. Maybe our communication has been completely messed up because your interpreter has been in between us. So he's misunderstood what we're saying. You've misunderstood, been through the interpreter, what we're saying, and vice versa. So maybe there's just a lack of communication here. Let's just talk between me and you. I want to speak to you directly with no interpreter in between. Ki kamocha ke Paro, says the Bet Halevi, beautiful. Paro had to know 70 languages. Midrash brings that Yosef knew in the prison, Malach came and he taught him the 70 languages to be able to become king of viceroy of Egypt. You had to know to deal with all the different world. Egypt was the UN at the time, right? You had to know all the languages. Yosef knew obviously Lashon HaKodesh. Paro didn't know except one language, that was Lashon HaKodesh. And Yosef essentially, so Paro knows 69 languages, and Yosef knows another one. But nobody knows that. And in fact, Paro actually makes him make a shvu'ah, makes him make a vow that he's not going to tell anyone that he actually doesn't know Lashon HaKodesh. Okay. Meanwhile, Yosef knows it. So he turns to him, he says, you are Paro, you are the Pharaoh over here. Or you are at least viceroy, which is supposed to know all the languages. If you're supposed to know all the languages, let's scrap the interpreter. Let me speak to you directly. There'll be no lack of communication. And here's the story. So if this is the situation, let me just do one thing and recap a short summary of what's been happening so that we can just kind of get on the same page. And here Yosef Yehuda plunges directly into the story with a quick summary of what's been happening. Pasuk Yutet, Pasuk 19, here we go. Adoni sha'al et avadav lemor. My Lord asked his servant, saying, Hayesh lachem av or ach? Do you have a father or brother? Vanomer Adoni yeshanu av zaken. And we said to him, my Lord, we have an old father, the Yeled Zekunin Katan, and a young child of his old age. Ve'achiv met, who's Achiv? So the Yeled Katan is the Binyamin. Ve'achiv met is
Yosef.
Ve'ivatehu levado le'imo, and he was left alone to his mother, this brother Binyamin. Ve'avi vahevo, and his father loves him a lot. Okay? Can I just point out very quickly something a little bit strange over here? Because
Rachel is dead.
Rachel's dead. No, he's talking about a story which he's told him back in the day, right?
He never asked them.
For his mother. I mean, from that marriage of Yaakov and Rachel, then there's only one child left because the other son is dead. Who's the other son, Yosef?
He never asked them. He never asked them, "Hayesh lachem avach." They voluntarily gave that information.
Very good point.
The way you probably should read it is, it's a question. Hayesh lachem avach? Did you ask us? If we didn't ask us, but we volunteered. We were honest with you.
Right. Very nice chat. Okay. But moving on to the next point is Ve'achiv met. This is really troublesome. Let's just quickly go back to the pasuk of Parashat Vayeshev.
Ve'achiv eneno.
Thank you, Yosef the Baal Koreh. Let's quickly, where's the pasuk? No, Yossi?
Yud Gimel.
And without the
Yud Gimel.
Chapter Bet, pasuk Yud Gimel. Chapter 42, pasuk 13.
Yeah.
Let's see the pasuk. They say over what's happening. What does the pasuk say? Vayomru, and they said, we are 12 brothers. Bnei Shechat, all the sons of one man. The younger one is with our father, Hayom. Va'echad enenu. And the other one is, we just don't know where he is. Okay? Now he says, he's dead. 1 second. Your stories are not pairing up. They're not matching up. There's a major problem over here. Yosef is going to catch him out right now. What's going on? Anyone?
Look at Pasuk Lamed Chet at the end again.
Where are you? This
Now-
is parasha, that last parasha.
Membet.
Membet lamed chet.
Reuven speaks to Yaakov and says, Ki achiv met.
But that's because it's Yaakov. They can't tell him that they sold him, so they say
Yeah.
met.
Yeah.
And for you, when they
Well,
talk to
Yosef-
Yosef,
Yeah.
they said he's dead, so he's not going to say, "Oh, go bring him also."
But why did they say Nenu at the beginning?
Okay, so to Eyal, to your point.
Because the Meraglim, he thought they're Meraglim, so they say we came to look for a brother, missing brother. So they say Enen the first time.
Oh.
I want to point out a very interesting point. Dan last week, I can't remember, last week or 2 weeks ago, asked, did Yaakov Avinu eventually find out about the story or not? We discussed it last week at length. We discussed it at this foreigner, the end of Parashat Vayechi, when the brothers take him up on it and say, perhaps would you forgive us? Your father told us to ask you to forgive us. That was the whole discussion we had. We brought some proofs last week. Yossi?
I heard something from, I think Rabbi Meir Eliyahu said that, or Benayahu, I don't remember. He said that, I think Benayahu Shmuel, he said that Yosef, after that, never met his brother Yaakov, his father Yaakov, without the brother.
Correct.
Without the brothers. So they're not going to think that maybe he's telling them, because he never told Yaakov what happened.
That's right. The Gemara says, all the years he never went to Yaakov alone. How do we know? Because it says, Vayikrivu Yemei Yisrael Lamut, next week's parasha. And Yosef was about, Yaakov's about to die. He calls his son. What do you mean? His son who missed him for so many years. You wouldn't think he'd be them every day. No, says Rashi, he would never ever went to him alone. And he had to go and actually call him to make sure, there's a special message your father has to you, he's about to die. But I want to bring to your attention a very strange Rashi. You can say such things, strange and Rashi. It's a bit of a... Mem Bet Lamed Vav, 42:36. When Reuven wants to take down Binyamin after they take the whole issue where they have to re-go down, what happens is Reuven, Vayomer lehem Yaakov avihem, Yaakov, the father, says to them, Perek Membet, Pasuk Lamed Vav, 42:37. Says Yaakov, Oti shikaltem, you have bereaved me. Shikaltem, shikul is a very terrible thing. Somebody who's bar minan loses their sons, it's called a shakul, bereaved. Yosef inenu, Yosef is no longer here. Shimon inenu, Shimon was in prison because Yosef kept him. Vet Binyamin tikachu, and now you want to take Binyamin as well? Alai hayu kulana. Upon me has it all fallen. Basically, I'm going to lose them all in one go. Definitely not. You can't take it. No way. I'm not losing everyone. Says Rashi. Look at Rashi. Incredible Rashi. Oti tishkaltem. I am the one whom you bereaved. Milamed shechashadam. Teach them that he was suspicious of them. That what? Shema hargu, that they might have killed Shimon, or machru, or sold him, Ke Yosef. Now you want to take Binyamin as well? No way! From Rashi, it sounds like something very strange. It sounds like Yaakov, whether he knew or didn't know is a discussion. But he had some sort of feeling the brothers weren't such ayayay. It wasn't so straightforward. they come and say, yeah, blood on the coat and thing. Not so straightforward. Okay, coming back to our point. Our question is, how could they say that Yosef is dead when in the previous story, they actually said that Yosef is just not around? Look at Rashi. What's bothering Rashi? Had to say it, the last class. It's for Ellen. Okay, says Rashi, V'achiv met mipnei hayirah, because of fear. Haya motzi davar sheker mipiv. He let something false come out of his mouth. Amar, im omer lo shu kayam. If I would say to him that Benjamin's brother Yosef is alive, Yomar, so this Egyptian weirdo would say, have you etzli? Bring him to me. I mean, every time we told him about anybody's around, yeah, just bring him along, and I'm not going to let you go, and I'm going to put the guys in prison. I don't care about anybody else. Make sure you bring him down. So he's just going to cause more problems. So they actually said a davar sheker mipiv. It's interesting to note, some of the poskim actually bring a proof from here that in very specific scenarios, when it comes to matters of life and death, then a person would be allowed to lie because of the threat of death. But that's a discussion to bring a proof from this Rashi. That how could Yehuda say davar sheker mipiv? The answer is it was a life or death situation. Okay, let's continue the pasuk. But Tomer avadecha. So what happened? So you told me, as soon as we told you we have a little brother at home, and I mean the other brother's dead, so there's nothing we can do about it. Little did they know the other brother who's dead is actually alive and kicking, standing in front of them. But whatever, that's just for the record. But Tomer avadecha hariduhu elai, and he says to the brothers, bring him down. Vasimi va'asima eni alav. I just want to see him. I want to see if the story is true. Not sure exactly why you want to call him, but this is what you asked for. But Nomer Ladoni lo yuchal anar la'azov et aviv va'azav et aviv amen. We said, no way, it's not chance, because if he leaves his father's side, the father's going to die. But Tomer Avadecha, you said to your servants, if you don't bring him down, you can't come down. When that happened, we told our father this ultimatum. So I said, okay, we're hungry, go get some food. No way we can do it unless we take our brother with us. Because the Egyptian ruler said, no way you can get any food, and you can't come down and see my face unless you have Binyamin with us. Again, Yossi's point is, Avdecha avi, your father is your slave. Our father is your slave. You should just know, I only had 2 sons from my wife Rachel. One has gone. And he has surely been torn to pieces, and I've not seen him until now. In fact, Mefashim asked about the discrepancy. So what's going on over here? Here, Yaakov is saying that he's for sure dead. And there, Yaakov is telling them, hey, I'm worried about you actually maybe sold him.
So, the wife of Potiphar.
One explanation. Good. But the other simple explanation, the most simple explanation is, here this is Yehuda recapping what's being told over to Yosef, not necessarily the words of Yaakov. So, okay. And if you take this guy, my son, away from me, disaster will befall him, and you have brought down my horniness and evil to the grave. If I now come to yourself, my father, and this youth is not with us, then because he's so tight, his soul is bound with his, then when he sees the youth is gone, when he sees he's not there, and he'll die. And you bring him down with terrible sorrow to the grave. Now here's where Yehuda jumps in. Why am I the spokesman for everybody else? Because I was the one that took responsibility for my younger brother to bring him back. And I said, if I don't bring him back to you, I would have sinned to my father for all my days. Rashi says, for this world, the next world. Now comes Yehuda with the impassionate plea. So now please, now you understand the background. My father's going to die if Binyamin doesn't come home. So just do me a favor. You want a servant? I understand he has to pay for his crimes. But take me. I'm bigger. I'm stronger. I'm the passionate guy. I'm the guy that can do this. Take me instead. Very famous words. How will I go up to my father? They use this as a euphemism. How will I go up to my father in heaven? And the passionate youth, our youthfulness is well not with us, right? Person can be so old when they're so young, bar minan. We have to be young when it doesn't matter how old we are. At that point, that was the final straw in coming back. Yosef couldn't take it anymore. What's that word? Yosef is consistently trying to hold back. He can't anymore. It's got to his throat to the level where he just when he crowd, everyone out. He didn't want to embarrass his brothers. Burst out crying. You can imagine that pent-up emotion. Pent up all those years where he tried every time he went. Till now, although he went to the side, he cried, washed his face, came back and made pretend Mr. Macho. But now he can't take it anymore. The emotion is too strong. You can imagine the cry, which he just, all that pent up emotion, the people behind the door, everybody can hear. And you can imagine the social media was flying already at the time. Paro already heard what's going on. They didn't know what it was about. They just knew who was crying. It was a crazy cry. Vayishma bet Paro. Already they heard about it in the palace. Vayomer Yosef el Achiv, Ani Yosef ha'od avichai. I am Yosef. Is my father still alive? What? My father's still alive? We've just been having a discussion the past 2 months about, father, yes, he's old, he's not sure, he gets frail, the brother, not sure, he's Binyamin. What? And the brothers were speechless. They're stunned. Yes, Shlomo.
I just wanted to say that I did not do any research on that, but it seems to me that this is probably the longest monologue in the whole Torah.
Correct. We mentioned it last week or 2 weeks ago, that these 4 parshiot is the longest monologue in the entire Torah of one specific scenario, which is the reason why we need to analyze it.
Is it longer than that monologue, really dialogue between Avraham and Eliezer? When Eliezer is trying
Avraham and Eliezer is all in one parasha. We have 4 parshiot of the story of Yosef and the brothers.
What about
Moshe?
Moshe?
Keep on repeating what happened with Yaakov's perspective, the brother's perspective, Yosef's perspective.
What about Moshe and Paro?
New events happening the whole time.
What I meant,
new things.
What I meant is what Yehuda is telling him in his ear, so to speak, is a very long explanation. Like this.
This is like 10 psukim. Like this is a short recap of the past few months.
Right.
The first time they came, the second time they came, there was lots of interaction going on with Yosef.
It's a recap, but by one person for a long time.
Okay, I thought you meant the whole
parsha. Eliezer recap in Chai Sarah was longer. With the tzmidim and this and that was much longer.
That's true. Eyal's point. That's true. And Rashi points that out. Why is there repetition? Right? We spoke about that. Okay, so
Rabbi, I know you have to conclude. What always attracts me is the words. I know Torah is typically minimalistic, but words that emote, that show emotion here. Back is vayicharav. Don't want you to get mad or get excited or get. And then velo yachol Yosef lihitapek. That's an interesting word, lihitapek. And then when he says ani Yosef, the brothers ki nivhalu mipanav.
Lots of emotion going on over here.
Lots of emotion, yeah. And the one more thing about the Vayigash is the name of the parasha. It's the first word, but look at here in Pasuk Daled, Vayomer Yosef el Achiv, Kshuna Elai, Vayigshu Vayomer. So something about approaching and coming close and connecting or reconnecting.
Why is he asking Od Avichai? He knows that.
So that's a very good question. So one of the questions is,
It's a classic sentence.
First of all, classic. First of all. Second of all, they didn't answer him. Even after he kind of criticized them. Huh?
It's a rhetoric
Rhetoric
question.
question. So
He
the
said,
simplest answer, Yossi, go ahead.
Thank you, Kvod Harav. Why didn't you think about my father when you sold me? Why didn't you think about my father back then?
You're so worried about your old father.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, what about till now? So maybe we should finish with this. There's a very famous midrash Bet Halevi brings, others bring, many people say. Amar Abba Kohen Barda. There's a midrash Rabbah. On this pasuk, Oy lanu miyom hadin, oy lanu miyom hatochecha. Woe is to us from the great eternal judgment day when we're going to go in front of God after 120. Yosef katnan shel shevatim. Yosef, who was the youngest of the shvatim. Lo yachlu echav lanot, not youngest, because Binyamin was younger, but of the youngest of all the other ones, who he was rebuking. Lo yachlu achiv lanot oto, ki nivalu panav. The brothers, when he answered them, what is Yom Hadin and Yom HaTochecha? The answer is, there's din, there's judgment, but there's Tochecha, which is rebuke on the contradictions of one's actions. You know, why is it when you say, I don't have money, but to pay school fees, you have no money, but to go to Hawaii on holiday, that you have money. Or I don't have money to give to to give some tzedakah, but to go buy a fancy iPad, no problem. The contradictions in our lives, yeah, the cognitive dissonance which we have constantly to be able to kind of tell ourselves, no, it's all right for this, but it's not enough for that. And we kind of answer for ourselves. That's tochacha, when you have the contradiction. Says the Midrash, if you can imagine that with Yosef, they were so flabbergasted, what's going to be in the Yom Hadin V'Agadol V'Anora, on the great day of judgment, where God says to us, here's the video. This is what you did. We're going to have a video of our entire life. And an insider's view, right? From our perspective. Scary. Back in the day, they didn't understand these concepts. Chavetz Chaim says always that nowadays we have things to be able to internalize much easier. Ayin Ra, we have video cameras. There's someone who's constantly watching. Speaking to Shlomo today about, Google or whatever it is constantly looking at you. In fact, there's someone who's constantly looking and checking every single action, knows exactly what you're doing. But when we go to after 120, God's going to say to us, no, you're going to say this and that. Yeah. But what about the flip side? So I think it's a very, a real take-home message we can take home from Yosef. Yeah.
I continue to read about Yosef's explanation about who he is, and he is giving them a really easy time. Like, he's not blaming them. He's taking the whole story as if it was, something that they didn't do a crime,
So, okay, we'll finish with this point, because I think I told Yossi I'll get back to this. So I forgot to mention this. The truth is, if you just analyze Yosef's behavior and Yehuda's behavior, Yehuda's quite frankly not being very fair. There's this whole tragic scene where someone's stolen. Yehuda tells them, you know what, his deal was we'll all be servants. Yosef says, don't worry about it, don't worry, you can all go home. I'll just keep this guy. I'm not even going to kill him. And then Yehuda gives him, smacks him over the head. That's not fair. So there's many different perushim Yossi mentioned. One of them, there is a Meshech Chochma that says pretty much that if you agree that Binyamin was the one that stole it, then clearly you would have killed him. Why are you suddenly letting him off the hook? So something's wrong over here. Something's off. Sforno says the whole thing doesn't make sense, because at the end of the day, as far as we're concerned, like what Yossi was saying before, that they understood that I understand if there's a concept of payback because we sold our brother. So you tell us we sold our brother, so now we should all be servants. But if you're telling us that none of us should be servants, it should just be Binyamin, who wasn't even there in part of the deal, which Yossi was saying before, that's just nonsense. So basically, you're just monkey business. You should got your own agenda over here, and you know, you want to play games like that, I'll play with you. We can sort it out. That's essentially the Amek Davar, the Nitziv, which goes up that route. The brothers understood there was something much deeper going on over here. But the second things didn't add up. Do you remember when the brother said last week, we discussed at length, Aval Hashemim Anachnu. It's our fault that the ruler is being so tight on us because of what the brothers did, because we saw our brother and they didn't we didn't give him enough compassion. So they're taking responsibility. But the second it doesn't add up, so then you know, we're done with this. So you want to play games, let's deal with it like a man. And that's kind of the whole breakdown until Yosef realized, okay, it's all over, and boom. I'm not even going to begin to discuss what happened with the dreams. We discussed very briefly last week, you know, the Ramban that says the dreams had to happen, and that's why he had to wait for Yaakov to come down. But he couldn't take it anymore. Really, Yosef had to wait till the dreams were established, until the dreams actually take place. That Yaakov had to come down to Egypt, had to bow down to him with all the brothers, and then to move on. Didn't happen because Yosef couldn't take it anymore, and he just literally broke. Eventually, it happened. Discussion when it happened, it didn't happen. Not for now, but I think we'll stop here. I would like to say thank you to everyone that joined the Shiurim. Incredible. Stay tuned for a entirely new series. Please God, after the winter break. Looking forward to seeing you all, and have a.
תודה רבה, רבי.
חזק
תודה
וברוך.
רבה. Thank you,
Excellent
Rabbi.
class.
Have a good night,
חג
everyone.
תודה רבה.
יישר כוח.
שמח.